So first foreign trip typically has been with UK, but I did it with Saudi Arabia last time because they agreed to buy $450 billion worth of our product. I said, I'll do it, but you have to buy American product, and they agreed to do that. They bought $450 billion. It was the least reported story I've ever been involved in.
And now, where are you planning to go now?
Well, I don't know. If Saudi Arabia wanted to buy another 450 or 500, we'll up it for all the inflation.
Mr. President, you say you were going to end the war's first day. How do you plan to end the Ukraine war?
Well, we're going to try and get it done as quickly as possible.
Do you want to push Israel and Saudi Arabia?
It should have never started. You know, the war with Ukraine and Russia should have never started. It would have never started if I were president.
Will you push Israel and Saudi Arabia to normalize relations?
I don't think I have to push them. I think it's going to happen, but maybe not quite yet. But they'll end up being in the Accords, the Abraham Accords.
President Trump,
I think Saudi Arabia will end up being in the Abraham Accords.
This year?
Could be, but soon. Not in a very long way. Oh, look at that! It says Tik Tok. My! What is that all about?
First, we have Alaska, sir. This is an executive order relating to unleashing Alaska's potential as an energy reservoir for the entire nation.
And what about ANWR?
I believe that would be included in aspects of the order.
We're opening up ANWR.
On the TikTok piece, President Trump, you and your members of your team now used to warn about the dangers of TikTok spying on Americans. What changed that you're not worried about that anymore?
Well, it depends on the deal. I mean, I may not do the deal or I may do the deal. TikTok is worthless. Worthless if I don't approve it. It has to close. I learned that from the people that own it. If I don't do the deal, it's worthless. Worth nothing. If I do the deal, it's worth maybe $1 trillion. $1 trillion. So if I do the deal I'm talking about doing it for the United States. If I do the deal for the United States, then I think we should get half.
The TikTok CEO.
In other words, I think the U.S. should be entitled to get half of TikTok. And congratulations, TikTok has a good partner. And that would be worth, could be $500 billion or something. It's crazy. The numbers are crazy. But it's worthless if the president doesn't sign, then it's worthless. If the president does sign, it's worth maybe $1 trillion. So I think, like a joint venture, I think we would have a joint venture with the people from TikTok. We'll see what happens. I mean, that's one of many ideas I've had.
The CEO is down. Did he say that he's open to that idea?
Who?
The CEO of TikTok is around.
Oh, I think he'd probably like it. Because he's got nothing. I mean, they really have nothing. It's passed in Congress. It gives the president a right to make a deal or to close it. And we have 90 days to make that decision. But I could see making a deal where the U.S. gets 50% of TikTok, polices it a little bit or a lot, depends on them. But remember, they make telephones in China. They make all sorts of things in China. Nobody ever complains about that. Here they're complaining about this. There's so many different products made in China, and nobody ever complained about it. The only one they complain about is TikTok. And TikTok is largely young people. I guess I have a warm spot for TikTok that I didn't have originally. But, I went on TikTok, and I won young people up by 36%, Peter. And Republicans typically don't do too well with young people. But it's a different Republican Party.
Would the U.S. TikTok executive order TikTok then, or how would it get that 50%?
No, you take 50% of TikTok for the approval that TikTok can continue in business. And they'd have a great partner. The U.S. would be their partner. But the U.S. essentially would be paid for doing that half of the value of TikTok.
Would there be a private sector owner as well?
Could be, yeah, could be a lot. Tell you what, every rich person has called me about TikTok.
You wanted to block TikTok. Why did you change your mind?
Because I got to use it. And remember, TikTok is largely about kids, young kids. If China's going to get information about young kids, I don't know.
Are you
I think, to be honest with you, I think we have bigger problems than that. But when you take a look at telephones that are made in China and all the other things that are made in China, military equipment made in China, TikTok, I think TikTok is not their biggest problem. But there's big value in TikTok if it gets approved. If it doesn't get approved, there's no value. So if we create that value, why aren't we entitled to like half?
Sir, if they don't come in 90 days, will you shut them down?
Does Biden ever do news conferences like this? How many news conferences, Peter, has he done like this?
Like this?
None.
0.
And it would be 0 for the next infinity. For infinity, it would be 0.
Mr. President, when you plan to talk to President Musk going to help implement the executive orders? I think you mentioned implementation.
Elon, no. Elon's very busy sending rocket ships up to various places with lots of satellites on them.
What is your reaction to the confirmation of Marco Rubio, and what does it mean for Latin America?
Which one?
Marco Rubio.
Marco Rubio. You said Marco. Marco
Rubio.
Yeah, I think he's great. I think Marco's doing a fantastic job. I think he's going to get a lot of votes. I think he's going to be at 90% or something. I mean, I'm hearing very good people know him. They know him in the Senate. They know he's good. He's doing a good job. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know what's going to happen with that. He's got some very strong ideas, though, Marco.
You signed
Did you sign the TikTok order?
Yeah.
Yes, that was just signed.
President Marco Rubio's ideas is
Just signed it.
How many
still changing Venezuela, changing power. Are you still committed with Maduro leaving power in Venezuela?
Well, we're going to find out about that, too, because we're going to probably stop buying oil from Venezuela. We don't need their oil.
Another embargo like the first term?
No, it could be, but we don't want to buy. We don't have to buy their oil. We have plenty of oil for ourselves. So
President Trump.
that'll change Venezuela quite a bit.
President Trump, there was a lot of concern about this during the campaign. A question that only works today. Are you a dictator on day one?
No. I can't imagine even being called that. No, I believe in the sanctity of the vote. The Democrats didn't because they cheated like dogs, but I believe in the sanctity, and this was too big to rig. This last election was just too big to rig.
Mr. President,
But,
believe in climate
really
change.
the opposite.
when do you plan to speak to President Putin?
Could be very soon.
And you talked a bit about Ukraine and Russia, but how long do you think it would take to end that conflict? And
I have to speak to President Putin. We're going to have to find out. He can't be thrilled. He's not doing so well. I mean, he's grinding it out, but most people thought that war would have been over in about 1 week. And now you're into 3 years, right? So he can't be thrilled. It's not making him look very good. Now, eventually, it's a big machine, so things will happen. But I think he'd be very well off to end that war. We have numbers that almost 1 million Russian soldiers have been killed. About 700,000 Ukrainian soldiers are killed. Russia's bigger. They have more soldiers to lose. But that's no way to run a country.
What did your TikTok order do, Mr. President?
It just gave me the right to sell it or close it. Essentially, with TikTok, I have the right to either sell it or close it. And we'll make that determination. And we may have to get an approval from China, too. I'm not sure. But I'm sure they'll approve it. And if they don't approve it, it would be somewhat of a hostile act, I think. But it's good for China if it gets approved.
Mr. President, you're not guaranteeing that TikTok will be around after 90 days from today?
No, but it could very well be. It makes sense for it to be, because it's got tremendous value. But if we create the value by approving, in other words, that approval gives it tremendous value. If that's the case, then we should be entitled to 50% as a country. You understand? You haven't heard that one before, right? That's called a joint venture. And nobody ever thought that way before. Well, I don't know. I think you have a lot of people that would be interested in TikTok with the United States as a partner.
Mr. President, what was it like walking into the Oval Office this evening?
Oh, what a great feeling. One of the better feelings I've ever had.
Do you like this town better now than in 2017?
Well, we're very experienced now. You would say nobody's ever had experience like I have. I've dealt with some very good people. I've dealt with some very bad people, and I know who the bad ones are and the good ones are. Don't forget, I was very successful in primarily the real estate business. And people used to say, who's worse, a politician or a vicious real estate developer? And I'd always say, the real estate developer is far worse. But after about 3 months and getting to know scum like Adam Schiff and other people like that. I said, no, actually, real estate people are quite nice by comparison.
You said you plan to speak with President Putin soon. What about President Zelensky, and what's your message?
Yeah, I would, but he's told me he wants to make a deal. Zelensky wants to make a deal. I don't know if Putin does. He might not. I don't know. He should make a deal. I think he's destroying Russia by not making a deal. I think Russia's going to be in big trouble. You take a look at their economy. You take a look at the inflation in Russia. So I would hope. I would cut along with him great, and I would hope he wants to make a deal.
Mr. President, are you keeping U.S. sanctions on Russia until he makes a deal?
Well, sanctions or tariffs. I think the word tariff is much better because it keeps your dollar stronger. I think tariffs are more effective. I mean, I used sanctions on Iran. Iran was broke. When I left office, Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, none. They were flat broke. And October 7th would have never happened. And I think you all know that. It would have never happened. They had no money. Now they're rich, but, they're weakened in a different way. I would say that the one attack by Israel really set them back. It really set them back. The Pagers and others. The attack on air defense was a bad attack for Iran.
What are you signing now, sir?
It's an executive order relating to reforms to the federal workforce, including to the senior executive service.
We're getting rid of all of the cancer. I call it cancer. The cancer caused by the Biden administration.
Sir.
How confident are you, Mr. President, that you can keep the ceasefire in Gaza and conclude the 3 phases of this deal?
I'm not confident. That's not our war. It's their war. But
Apologize.
I'm not confident. But I think they're very weakened on the other side.
Do you support the 2-state
Gaza,
solution?
boy, I looked at a picture of Gaza. Gaza is like a massive demolition site. That place it's really, it's got to be rebuilt in a different way.
Do you plan to help rebuilding Gaza?
I might. Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, best weather. Everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it, but it's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
How do you see the future in governance for Gaza?
Well, it depends. I can't imagine you could have... Well, you certainly can't have the people that were there. Most of them are dead, by the way, right? Most of them are dead. But they didn't exactly run it well. Run viciously and badly. So you can't have that.
Mr. President, on TikTok, sir, would you pause any decision on Chinese tariffs until you know what the resolution on TikTok will be?
No, if China didn't approve it, we could put tariffs on China. Don't forget, China charges us tariffs, and we charge them very little, except for what I did. I put a lot of, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars. But until I came along, China never paid 10 cents to this country. They ripped us off, and they never paid anything. But, like, if we wanted to make a deal with TikTok, and it was a good deal, and China wouldn't approve it, then I think ultimately they'd approve it, because it would put tariffs on China. Maybe. I'm not saying I would, but you certainly could do that. And if we said, well, if you're not going to approve it, then that's a certain hostility, and we'll put tariffs of 25, 30, 40, 50%, even 100%. And if we did that, I think they'd approve it.
President Trump, you've seen the other living presidents a couple times in the last few months. If you ever had to call on one of them for advice about anything that's going on here, which one would you call?
It's an interesting. Well, I thought Bill Clinton was a very good politician. I don't think he was used properly. I think they disrespected him. When Hillary was running, he came back and he said, you better get up to Michigan and Wisconsin. You remember that, Peter. Every house has a Trump sign on it. And they all laughed at him because the Republicans hadn't won Michigan or Wisconsin for decades, long time. And they all laughed at Bill Clinton. Like, the hell does he know? And he turned out to be right because I won both of them. And then we just won both in this election, too. We won Wisconsin and Michigan and every other swing state. We won all the swing states, all 7. They talked about 7 swing states. We won them all. So, but Bill Clinton he had a great political sense, I think.
You looked like you were having a good conversation with President Obama at President Carter's
I was.
funeral.
And you'd like to know what it was? Oh. Everybody wants to know. I know, I wouldn't want to, but we were having some crazy conversations. Why do you asking a question like that? I don't think you want to know. You might not. You might be insulted.
It's an executive order relating to holding former government officials accountable for unlawful disclosure of sensitive information. This next one, sir, is a declaration of a national energy emergency.
So you also
That's a big one. You know what that allows you to do? That means you can do whatever you have to do to get out of that problem. And we do have that kind of an emergency.
President Trump, at some point will you use your powers of the presidency to tell Americans who are concerned about drones?
Yeah. Oh,
a few weeks
good.
ago,
Yeah.
what exactly
I will.
Can you tell us now?
In fact, I'd like to know because I just got here.
What do you think?
I just came here. I've been here for 15 minutes now.
Do people listening, because this is going out live.
And I got to read this letter too because of you. I found this letter.
I can read it for you.
It's interesting. Yeah, I know you would. Your father would too.
But is it anything to be drones? Is it anything that people need to be worried about?
No, I think it's terrible. I would like to find out what it is and tell the people.
And can you commit to some kind of...
In fact, I'd like to do that. Could we find out what that was, Susie? Okay? Yeah, why don't we find out immediately? I mean, I can't imagine it's an enemy or there would have been, people would have gotten blown up all over. Maybe they were testing things. I don't know why they wouldn't have said what it was. They had a lot of them flying over Bedminster, which is interesting.
And with the events today and yesterday, was everything moved inside just for cold weather, or was there some kind of security concern?
No security. Because they had everything shut down to drones. You can shut that down pretty easily if you're sophisticated. They're very sophisticated, these people. No, it was just cold weather. And we made a good move because, first of all, I thought it was incredible in the Capitol today. You know why I liked it? Because I got great reviews on that speech. I got great reviews. Can you believe it? They actually were fair. Maybe the fake news is changing.
Unleashing energy production.
Yeah, unleashing energy production. But I thought it was, I think having it in the Capitol is great. It's obviously, you can take care of the people you have to take care of. The city was booming. And if we would have done it outside, people would have been hurt because it was really cold. It was looked sunny. But when you stood outside for 10 minutes, people were running back in. It was really cold and really windy. The wind brings it down a lot. So we made the right decision. You couldn't have stayed. I don't think you could have had it out. You know how cold it was today. It was, people went out for a little while just to test it. They couldn't stay out more than 10 minutes. They all came back in. So we would have had a disaster if we did that, and people would have been hurt.
The unlawful disclosure, is that related to the Hunter Biden situation?
Which one?
The one on unlawful disclosures by federal officials, is that related?
No, I think it's just more general than that. It's not Hunter Biden. I was surprised that President Biden would go and pardon his whole family because that makes him look very guilty. I could have pardoned my family. I could have pardoned myself, my family. I said, if I do that, it's going to make me look very guilty. I don't think I'd be sitting here, frankly. If I did that, I don't think I'd be sitting here right now because I would have shown that you're guilty. But by pardoning his brother or brothers, by pardoning all of those people that he pardoned, by pardoning J6, the Unselect Committee, they destroyed all of the documents. They deleted all of the information. There's no information. And a lot of the information pertains to Nancy Pelosi because she was given 100, I mean, you know this, it's on tape with her daughter. Nancy Pelosi was responsible for not taking advantage of 10,000 soldiers or 1,000. You wouldn't have you could have used 400. It was a relatively small crowd. It wasn't the crowd that was at the mall. It was a small crowd. So I was a little bit surprised that he did it, because it makes him look guilty. I mean, he's going to have to live with it. Now, with that being said, it's unbelievable precedent it creates for a president. But the precedent is unbelievable. Now maybe every president that leaves office, they're going to pardon every person they ever met, so they don't have some lunatic like deranged Jack Smith, who's a total lunatic, by the way. Not a smart guy either, he's a dummy. But we beat the hell out of him. And I helped my reputation.
Do you think you'd have to do the same thing at the end of this term?
Well, I guess now I have precedent to do it. I wouldn't want to do that. No, I think it makes you look very guilty. I think it makes Biden look very bad, very weak, and very guilty. And, I mean, he pardoned everybody. How about this J6 committee? Why is he pardoning them? The reason is because if you delete and destroy documentation, everything, they have nothing, because they were guilty as hell. They rigged it. It was a rigged deal. And when you do that, they look very bad. But I was a little surprised he did it. Liz Cheney, I mean, she's a lunatic. And she lost by the greatest margin in the history of a politician running for Congress, like 40 points. The reason it was the greatest is because anybody losing that badly is going to drop out. But she's a nut job. She doesn't drop out. You know, she just keeps chugging forward. And she lost by almost 40 points. That's the biggest number anybody's ever lost by. But why would Biden do that? He pardoned her and pardoned everybody. The reason is that they destroyed documents. And if you're even in a civil case, which this wouldn't be, I mean, people go to jail for a long time for doing that. What's this one?
That's unleashing American energy, sir. It relates to easing permitting processes and other regulatory systems to ensure that we can produce energy efficiently to drive the American economy forward.
President Trump, looking around the office, we noticed some changes from the way that Biden had it set up. Can you confirm that you have added back the Diet Coke plan?
I think this, first of all, I just got here. So my people came in. They have extraordinary decorator sense, right? Let me just see some of the pictures. Oh, that's a good one. I could live with him. I could live with George Washington, I can tell you. I could live with Thomas Jefferson. I could live with most of them. They took a very safe route. They don't have any bad ones up there.
Withdrawing from
what is this one?
Withdrawing from the World Health Organization, sir.
Ooh, that's a big one. So we paid $500 million to World Health when I was here, and I terminated it. China, with 1.4 billion people, we have 350 to pay. We have, nobody knows what we have because so many people came in illegally, but let's say we have 325. They had 1.4 billion. They were paying 39 million. We were paying 500 million. It seemed a little unfair to me. So that wasn't the reason, but I dropped out. They offered me to come back for 39 million. In theory, it should be less than that, but, you know. And when Biden came back, they came back for 500 million. He knew that you could have come back for 39 million. They wanted us back so badly, so we'll see what happens.
Mr. President,
pretty sad, though. Think of it. China pays 39 million, and we pay 500 million. And China's a bigger country.
Mr. President, you spoke about inflation today in your remarks. What actions are you taking today that will have a direct impact for Americans on their everyday costs to bring the costs down?
The biggest thing and factor for inflation is energy. They screwed up my energy policy, and then they went back to it. You know, they heard it really badly, and then they went back to it, and they started drilling more, but by that time it was too late. Many of these things that we're signing and that Doug Burgum is going to be signing, and Chris Wright, who's phenomenal at, you know, Energy, Department of Energy, we're going to be taking a lot, we're going to make a lot of money from energy. We have more than anybody else. We're going to make a lot of money from energy. We're going to make a lot of money from tariffs. You know, European Union charges us, they have a VAT tax of 20%, but it's really much higher than that. And that's the equivalent, almost the equivalent of a tariff. And they're tough. They're very tough. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm product. They don't take almost anything. And yet we take their cars, and we take their farm product. We take a lot from them. So, we have like a $300 billion deficit with the European Union. So we'll straighten that out with either tariffs or they have to buy our oil. The one thing they can do, our oil and gas, the one thing they can do to catch up quickly, buy our oil and gas.
Will you travel?
And they should do that.
Will you travel to China this year?
Yeah, it could be. I've had the invite.
President Xi
I would do it, yeah.
this
I
year.
would do it.
Talking about the European Union and the tariffs, like, what do you mean when you say that European Union country like is part of BRICS?
That are what?
BRICS.
Oh, BRICS. No, I was talking about BRICS. BRICS are 6 nations. I think it's 7 nations. And they were looking to do a number in the United States. And if they do that, they won't be happy about what's going to happen to them.
Are you still considering a universal tariff, Mr. President, on all countries?
I may, yeah, but we're not ready for that yet. We may wrap it,
Mr. President.
because essentially all countries take advantage of the U.S. We don't make any good deals in the U.S. It's amazing in a way that we exist. We don't make good deals. We don't have any good deals. We have a deficit with almost, not all, there are a couple, I won't tell you their names because I don't want them to find out about it because they'll feel stupid. But there are a couple of countries that actually don't make money with us. But I don't want to let you know because they'll immediately change that. But we're gonna do. I tell you what, our country has an amazing economic future. I really believe that.
What kind of universal tariff if you did do one?
Well, you'd put a universal tariff on anybody doing business in the United States because they're coming in and they're stealing our wealth, they're stealing our jobs, they're stealing our companies, they're hurting our companies. So you put a tariff on to keep them from doing that.
Mr. President, you surrounded yourself with a whole bunch of billionaires today. President Biden, as in his farewell address, warned about oligarchy. I was wondering if you could respond to that.
Well, he had a lot of guys, and then they found out that he didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and I think they deserted him. They deserted him, those same guys. Look, I don't make pretenses, smart guys, but there are a lot of smart people around, but they did desert him. They were all with him, every one of them. Now they're all with me. I don't know. It's not going to get anything from me. I don't need money. But I do want the nation to do well, and they're smart people, and they have, they create a lot of jobs. And if they don't do it, China's going to do it. What they've done is they've taken industries and they've taken it away. They outsmarted China. And, we sort of like that. It's okay. They've done a great job. A lot of them, not all of them.
Protecting women from radical gender ideologies.
Ooh.
Mr. President, going back to the World Health Organization, you were the president during COVID. Don't you see the importance of an organization like that to coordinate a global response?
Sure, I do, but not when you're being ripped off like we are by the World Health. World Health ripped us off. Everybody rips off the United States, and that's it. It's not going to happen anymore. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, guys, let's go.
One last one, sir. This is your Martin Luther King proclamation.
Thank you, President.
All right, I'll take it, sir.
Thank you, President.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's go. Thanks, President.
I'm going to read something for like 5 minutes. Good evening, I'm Chris Cuomo, live from NewsNation's D.C. headquarters. Welcome to the Golden Age. Now we all get to see what that means. We have a 2-hour special edition tonight because it is an historic occasion, an inauguration where the country can hold its head up and say, we did the job the right way. There was a transfer of power the way the Constitution and, frankly, our culture should envision it. So let me get a take on where things stand from the panel here because it's a very important night. You can't hold on to people. There's a lot going on tonight. Governor Chris Sununu, it's good to see you. It's good to see each and all of you here. Ned Burchett, Chris Stirewalt, and, of course, Amisha Cross. So we've got a full panoply of perspective. Governor, what do you make about what the significance of this day is and as kind of a function of what you expected?
Well, I don't know if it's a golden age. It's at least gold-plated. Let's start there because it looks good. He's coming out fast. He's doing a lot. I think he's making up for the fact that he did get a lot done in 17 and 18, right? He actually didn't really understand how the processes worked. I think he appreciated the criticism there. So he's coming out saying, I'm going to sign executive orders. I'm going to send stuff to Congress. I'm going to get this stuff done. Everything I told you I was going to do, I'm serious about. And he's putting it on paper. So I give him credit there. They're trying to move quick and fast and take advantage of the honeymoon.
What do you think should be the first couple of steps?
The first steps are a lot of phone calls, right, to international leaders, to leadership in the House and the Senate, and Democrat leadership in the House and the Senate. If you have a one-vote margin in the House, do not think you're going to get things passed by a one-vote margin. You got to be able to give a little to get a lot. And I believe you can always find 20, 30, 50 Democrats giving them a little here to get a bigger piece of the pie there. Maybe it's on immigration reform, whatever it is. But that only happens with transparency and communication.
What do you think should be his first big legislative push?
Immigration reforms, not just securing the border. That's the easy part, frankly, but immigration reform, which this country has talked about for 30 years and done virtually nothing about. And that's something where the American public would say, okay, maybe we agree with this piece or not that piece, but at least you did something. At least, and by the way, that's a huge win for Congress. Right? Congress, more than anybody, has to show that they are willing to not just get everything they want, but again, give a little to get a lot to show the American public that, again, Washington can, quote unquote, be trusted to actually do something.
And as it turns out, we are fortunate to have a Southern conservative sitting right to your right.
Which gives me a lot of faith in the process.
So, Congressman Burchett, it's good to see you in person.
You, brother.
God bless you and the family. Best to all of you for the new year. What is the chance among the ranks of, if the call is, give us comprehensive immigration reform, what is the appetite for working with the other side? You know what they want.
Yeah, I think there is an appetite to get something done. I would make references back to Reagan. Reagan had, if you would stack his program up against some folks now, you'd think Reagan might have been a little liberal on the issue. But the reality is America's economy flourishes when we have a strong workforce. And when folks come in over the border, they came in legally, they did jobs, they were seasonal, they went home to their families, and it worked. It worked for America. And the problem was it just got abused, like any good program that was set up. And I don't know if Reagan set it up. I can just remember in my youth that was going on. And if you would propose something like that now, you would probably, it would not pass. But I think once we've built the wall and we've implemented some programs to keep the criminal element out, and I think these other countries, when they stop using us as a dumping ground, because let me tell you, the vast majority of those folks coming over the border, they're good folks. They're family folks. When I went to the border, I remembered I had a little girl was there, and I said "Hola," and the police said, "Sir, she doesn't speak English." And I said, "Well, people probably don't think I speak very good English." But the little girl, I married my wife, and my wife was a widow, and I adopted a little girl, and I always remember that little girl was about the same age as my little Isabel. And I put my hand on that little girl's back, and I thought, we are the greatest nation on God's green earth. Surely we can come up with something that works for this country and for these other countries. And personally, I've been working with another country in down Central America to develop their economic basis, because if they make $5,000 or more, they'll stay in their country. And now the tide has switched, is flown so far over that they don't even have working age men and women in some of these countries that can do these jobs. And I'm not talking about sweatshop jobs, but I'm talking about jobs, and I'm trying to develop a situation where there would be tax breaks for Americans to invest in those countries, that they would, in fact, export a product to us that's useful, not in a sweatshop type situation. And, the devil's in the details, and act surprised when I get my Nobel Prize for that piece of legislation.
I can't wait to do the interview. So, look, we just saw, Amisha, what standard operating procedure is going to be for the next 4 years in terms of the media. Okay, Trump is literally made for TV, all right? And they're going to cover everything he said. But that also wound up getting reflected on the lawmaker side. Ned Burchett does not sound a world away from where Democrats are when they talk about immigration. Do you believe that there is an appetite to push past oppositional politics and, if nothing else, not let Republicans own a win on immigration, but work with them?
I think there has to be. I respect the story that you just told, and I do hope that within this Congress we will see what should have happened decades ago. We're talking about coming together on comprehensive immigration reform. There has to be an understanding that many of these individuals are leaving their home countries because, quite frankly, there is no economic come up for them there at all. Many cannot afford things like bread. That we have to make sure that we are addressing those issues, but also that our laws are followed here. First and foremost, we have had a system that has been broken for quite some time. There are individuals who have applied for asylum who, quite frankly, do not qualify for asylum. And unfortunately, as of today, the CPB app is gone. So even individuals who were likely to have their cases heard in a short amount of time, now all of that is blown up. And many of them have been waiting for years. Backlogs after backlogs. We need to ensure that we have a comprehensive system that works. And that's only going to happen if Democrats and Republicans can come together and that they will not allow politics to get in their way.
What about the hard stop for Democrats about amnesty? Is amnesty still a real ask on the Democrat side?
I think that at this point, Democrats are going to have to lean in as well. We have asked it many times when Democrats had control, and it's time to ask it of themselves right now. Quite frankly, because America has already showed us where they are, and I think that the popular vote going to Donald Trump this time has really shaken up the Democratic Party.
Hey, Chris. First of all, we don't fake the funk on News Nation. If you got to go, Gov, you can go. I really appreciate you being here. We'll be talking all year. But, people got celebratory balls.
He looks great in a tuxedo, let me tell you.
TV, they sneak them off, and then you think nothing happened. We don't do that here. If he's got to go, he's got to go.
It's kind of like that older brother on Happy Days. He just disappeared. Nobody knew
That's exactly right. What happened to him? Can you get to the bottom of that?
Yeah,
I think it's connected to the drones.
It is. UFOs.
So, Chris, we keep hearing today, this is a different Trump. This is a different Trump. That is like the same Trump.
Same desk.
To me, he loves to engage the media. Now, the media is on their best behavior today. Gov, be well. They're on their best behavior, okay? They're not jumping his answers and doing the things that frustrate him. That will come, probably. But do you think we're dealing with a different man, and why?
Well, look, he said he was you talk about not faking the funk. He was transparent about it in his double inaugural addresses today. He had one that was the one he said they made him give, and then he gave the one that he meant to give, right? So it's the bifurcated Trump. And that's a mode that could work. That actually could be a mode that works if you can divide Trump, that you have official Trump and then you have MAGA Trump. Maybe that works. I think what ultimately we find out here, we heard very good things from the governor, we heard very good things from the congressman, heard very good things from my friend. America is ready to get on with a lot of unresolved issues. The Democratic Party reached a reasonable but ultimately incorrect conclusion about the issue of immigration. At the turn of the last century, Democrats concluded that a permissive posture on immigration was something that was, they believed, good for the country, but also electorally good for them. Missing the point around the complexities inside Hispanic votes in the United States, that Hispanic voters were not monolithic in the way that African American voters had been since the Civil Rights Act. And it was not going to be a 90% or 85% Democratic constituency. By being unable to move on that issue, they ceded it to Republicans, and then we saw the fruits of that in urban areas, in big cities, in blue states, as we saw how immigration affected voters in those places. This is an opportunity for Democrats to retool. The question is, will Donald Trump take a win? Because he could have a huge, we talked this morning about Donald Trump wants to be a Mount Rushmore kind of president. There is one avenue that I can think of that Donald Trump could enter the annals of presidential greatness, which is if he could really put together the deal on immigration that, as Congressman Burchett alluded to, has eluded Washington since the mid-1980s, that George W. Bush tried, that people have tried again and again. If Donald Trump is the guy who fathers the deal, the comprehensive deal that trades border security for a pathway to citizenship for people in the United States already, that could totally redefine his legacy.
And, you just throw in at the end that Mexico becomes Trumpico. And he'll probably
That's
sign
right,
the deal
the
right
Gulf
there.
of Trump.
And
We'll
it's not that
up
big a
it
deal.
from the Gulf of America to the Gulf of Trump.
It's not that big a deal when you think about it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Our former RNC chair, Ronna McDaniel, is going to join not just the table, but our conversation. Let's take a break, and then we'll reset what we believe is going to be coming our way. We have Bill O'Reilly joining us, Geraldo Rivera joining us, so we're going to get big doses of perspective, and tonight we need it. Stay with us.
Many people thought it was impossible for me to stage such a historic political comeback. But as you see today, here I am. The American people have spoken. For years, I have been tested and challenged more than any president in our 250-year history. And I've learned a lot along the way. The journey to reclaim our republic has not been an easy one, that I can tell you.
So it's an interesting question. What has Donald Trump learned, and how will we see it made manifest, hopefully to the benefit of the majority of Americans in this country? So I want to bring in author and journalist Bill O'Reilly. We have Ronna McDaniel here also. Let me just loop her into the conversation, Bill, then I'll be coming to you. Ronna, the idea of he did the inaugural address. He then went downstairs and said, here's the speech I wanted to give, and went on a rant for about 25 minutes of all the old grievances. Do you believe this is a different man or just a different time?
I think he is different in the sense that last time he came and he listened to kind of the status quo Republicans and followed their agenda and followed Paul Ryan's agenda. And this time he said, I'm coming. I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to slow down for anybody. I'm going to get everything done. I know I have a limited time. So I always say he's not hitting the ground running. He was running before he hit the ground, and you saw that today.
There is a school of thought that out of the box do things that will appeal to the most people.
Right.
You know, like in his first term, Jared Kushner was supposed to be in charge of DJT 100, which you'll probably remember.
I do.
That get him to 100% popularity. He comes out of the box. One of the things he does is just moments ago, the January 6th pardons. You know it's a polarizing issue. What's the play?
He said it. He said it all along the campaign trail. He promised it to his voters. And he has a mantra, which is promises made, promises kept. And so if he said it on the campaign trail, you better believe he's planning to do it as president. He's not a nuanced guy. Why
that one? He could have said, I'm signing an executive order that gas is now 18 cents.
This is something these voters have wanted. They've wanted this. They feel like, especially the nonviolent offenders, should not have been given the sentences they've been given. They felt like it's unfair, just like they felt like Donald Trump's been treated unfairly. So they really wanted to see him do this to give them some measure of justice. And I think Donald Trump feels that way because he feels like he's been wrongly persecuted as well.
Bill O'Reilly, how have you observed the day?
Many different ways, Cuomo. What's concerning you tonight? That's what I want to know. What is Chris Cuomo concerned about? Then I will answer your specific question.
I actually wrote something exactly about that I will now deliver tomorrow night because I yielded my time to the President of the United States, if for no other reason than ratings. But my concerns were this, that you don't have to be happy about the election, or you can be ecstatic about the election. It still leaves you in the same place of having to demand action. And I think the more all of the stakeholders involved in the process can minimize what's said and maximize a push for what's actually done, the better. And that's certainly a lesson that I learned from the first time around covering Trump, is that I can make great content based on what he says. It is rarely indicative of actually what's going to move the needle for the rest of the country. So my concern is, can we have more Carrie Underwood moments where, you know, there was a technical issue and she looked out to the Republicans and Democrats and said, you know the words, sing it with me. And everybody sang the song, you know, together. And I think that there could be more of that. There's a lot of chances to work together if you can get that party mentality out of your mind. That's my concern of how do I help progress.
I don't see that happening.
Thanks.
The first...
And good night.
No, I mean, look, I respect your opinion, but I live in the real world and you live in the Cuomo world. I don't see that happening at all. Number one, this week and probably parts of next week are all rewarding MAGA people. That's it. And that's why you saw the J6. Now, I was very furious on January 6th, and I don't believe that there was any excuse for what happened. And I believe that everybody who entered illegally should have been charged. But there were cases that were extenuating, and I would grant pardons for those if I was the president. The key to this is Donald Trump explaining, can't do all 1,500, and he didn't pardon 173 of them, which you feel is probably the worst. But he should explain and take some examples and say, this is why I did what I did. But he's not real interested in unifying. Anybody who thinks he's going to be a unifier in his 4 years, they're crazy. That's not happening. What he wants to do is fulfill his campaign promises. And one of the promises was, I'm going to give these people a break because they're MAGA supporters. They were there in support of me. I feel bad for them, and I'm going to do it. Now, I would never do it if any violence was involved. In fact, there's one incident on social media now. There was one incident on social media now that I already have my investigators on, and I will tell the story on the No Spin News tomorrow in the Talking Points memo. The second thing about Donald Trump is vengeance. That speech today was unprecedented in American history. Never before, at least I can't find it, did an outgoing president humiliate an ingoing president humiliate an outgoing president. Right. Never before. And we had some pretty intense hatreds going on in campaigns. So 6 feet away, Joe Biden had to sit there for 30 minutes and listen to how he screwed up every single thing in this country. And it was excruciating. And the reason that Donald Trump did that is because he believes that President Biden was behind Jack Smith and Mar-a-Lago's raid. And it's vengeance. And I will make one more illuminating point on this. And you can identify with this, Cuomo. If someone attacks your family, and it has been done to me and you, forgiveness is not real easy to do, especially if the person doesn't ask. And Trump's family was attacked in all of these things that came out of Merrick Garland's Justice Department. Now, I don't know if Biden was cognizant enough to be a co-conspirator here. I will find that out, but I don't know now. But Trump firmly believes that Biden was behind the attacks, not only of him, but his family. And that is why he humiliated Biden to an extent never before seen in an inaugural address today.
Yeah, it's probably one reason why he didn't show up 4 years ago either, is because he knew what was going to be coming his way, and Biden chose a different path. Look, I hear your analysis. I think it's good food for thought for the audience. I disagree with a number of the points, but the only one that really matters is every moment that Donald John Trump motivates any retrospective in terms of investigating narratives, looking at narratives, is to me a moment wasted for the American people. And I don't expect Republicans to be better than Democrats were. I think they're all about their party and shoring up their own power bases, and they have no problem investigating the other side because it's the easiest way to do that. But I think it's ruinous to the country. And part of my perspective on it is to attack it.
Let me ask you a question.
Please.
Let me ask you a question then. I don't agree with you. We have a gentleman's disagreement on this because I don't think you're wrong per se. I just think the advancement of the country's welfare requires an exposition of the truth. So today,
what the Democrats said.
just before he walked out of the White House, Biden pardoned his family, everybody but Jill.
Right.
Okay. If I'm President Trump, I ask the Attorney General, Bondi, to appoint a special counsel to investigate the Biden family, even though a full pardon is on the books. Because the American people have a right to know
really
whether there was graft and corruption at the vice presidential level and the presidential level. That's what I do. Would you oppose that?
Yeah, I'd absolutely oppose it. And I think it would be really funny if Pam Bondi picked a special counsel that wasn't someone who was already working at the DOJ and see if the Republicans got upset about that the way they did with Jack Smith. But I think that's a BS issue anyway, and I can't believe that judge called it out, and I guarantee you it loses on appeal, but that's not important. What is important is that's nothing but petty vengeance. There is zero chance that Congress, let alone a special counsel, is going to uncover something that is entirely unknown at this point about the perfidy or felonious activities of the Biden family. Any more so than is obvious. You can disagree, that's fine. I'm just saying history makes it really clear.
There's millions of dollars in there is millions of dollars in play.
I know, but Bill, we both heard the same thing about Trump making money hand over fist, and his daughter getting patents, and his son's doing this, and getting billions from the Saudis, and the other thing.
No evidence at all.
There's plenty of evidence of it, but it was a waste of the American people's time.
Nothing that you could even bring. Go ahead. Nothing you could bring into court. Look, if you hire a judge, all right, somebody who has credibility across with both, the American people have a right to know if there was graft in the Obama White House on Biden's part and in the presidency.
I got you. Look, I don't make the call. I'm just saying if you want to expend that kind of energy, I love it. I just hope they do it about the pandemic and take a look at the vaccine and how it was developed in Operation Warp Speed and what they knew about and what they didn't. That's what I would do. But, Bill, I love you, and we'll have it to be continued. Let's take a quick break, 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and then we'll get the feel of the players at the table. You know what we've been living through today, right? Trump is signing executive orders. This is not the biggest thing that he can do, but to Bill O'Reilly's point, these are messages. These are statements of promises kept, fine. But what do they mean for all of us? We'll talk about it when we come back.